Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Apex to Apex podcast. And that's the last time I'm actually going to call it the Apex to Apex podcast because we've had a slight rebrand. It's now going to be called the Apex to Apex Sports. The channel and the brand as a whole, I gave it a slight little rebrand. You might see the channel handles and social handles at the bottom of the screen are a bit outdated. They will be updated in due time. I just haven't had time to do it yet, but they will soon say Apex to Apex Sports. Apex to Apex podcast is still a thing. We are still going to do these weekly podcasts. Slight things will change, as I said, UI-wise. Why, you might ask, is it going to be called Apex Apex Sports? Basically, Formula 1 and my motorsports are a very tough watch for me this year, and a tough thing to talk about, because I think it's dreadful. So I decided, why? I'm a sport nut. Everything I do is around the sports I watch and the sports I play. So why limit myself? Why not expand the horizon for this brand and this project I'm trying to make and in the progress of making? And let's make our own little sports channel. Hence Apex to Apex Sports. Now don't worry, this is still going to be the review for Zandvoort, the review for the Formula 1 Dutch Grand Prix, which happened at the weekend. Well, from the time of recording this, happened yesterday. But at the end of it, we're also going to throw in some football news, as the Premier League also returned at the weekend for match day 1 of the new season. And as a Tottenham fan myself, it was just as painful as the previous 2 seasons have been, but we'll get into that at the end, because there will be a Tottenham rant. For now, it's going to be the same sarcasm, the same opinions, just more sports covered. But as I said, let's get into the start of this podcast, which is the Dutch Grand Prix review for Formula 1, which was run in the end by Lando Norris. Oh, heads up if you're watching the video. Again, if you've seen this before, you realize my eyes dart everywhere. It's because there's a lot of things happening in front of me right now, and I just can't focus on one thing at a time. As proven, as mid-sentence, my eyes drifted off. But yes, Zandvoort won by Lando Norris. It was a pole position by Lando Norris. It was a back-to-back race win by world champion Lando Norris. Now, Zandvoort had now its final year in Formula 1. There will be no more Zandvoort in the calendar for the near future. Kind of thankfully, as I don't think it ever did fit Formula 1 for the size of Formula 1 now and what it needs to be an entertaining circuit. But I think yesterday it did put on Sunday, it did put on probably the best race Zandvoort's put on since its return to the calendar in 2021. Now, it was a sprint weekend. I'm not going to mention sprint qualifying or the sprint race, because frankly it was that dull again for the sprint races. It's pointless talking about. Russell won the sprint race. Russell got pole position in the sprint race. Whoop-de-doo, take that what you will. Now you might ask, why was this particular Dutch Grand Prix of Zandvoort slightly more entertaining than previous editions? I think it's because of strategy again. Now, some drivers, of course, figured out these regulations more than others. McLaren, for example, look at Norris versus Piastri. But I think there was a mixture of pace, because on different tyre compounds, especially the medium and the hard tyres, that in turn threw up different strategies, which, as we know, strategy can make the most boring races entertaining. As I said, Lando Norris, patience of a world champion, as he did actually lose the lead at the start. Well, there was 2 restarts. We'll get into why the first restart was red flagged at the end of the opening lap. But at the second launch, he actually lost the lead to Antonelli at turn 1. Now, I thought there was going to be a bit of contact between the McLaren and the Mercedes into turn 1, as it was tight. Norris really did push Antonelli to the inside, as he had to, because his launch was poor. Antonelli responded, went down the inside. But I realised at about lap 20, between 20 and 25, this is Norris's race to lose. Because he was able to sit within 0.7 to 1.5 of Antonelli. Now, if you're able to do that at a twisty, tight track like Zandvoort, where overtaking is limited, it shows how much pace you have in hand still to use once that free air clears up. And that's exactly what happened. Antonelli had to pit, and then Mercedes had to kind of base their strategy around trying to catch Norris out. Norris, I feel, knew he could go long and put out in front, although he came up behind Antonelli at the time of the pit stops. But he had the tyre advantage on the, I can't remember the laps, 7 laps maybe, fresh tyres, something like that, I don't really remember, to catch Antonelli and to pass Antonelli, which is exactly what he did. Now, his move to overtake Antonelli for the lead was a good overtake. This was a deserved win by Norris, don't get me wrong, just like Hungary, it was a deserved win by him. The move around the outside of turn 1 Tarzan was a good overtake. It was not quite the calibre of Gilles Villeneuve on Alan Jones in 1979 at Tarzan. That was one of the best overtakes of all time in Formula 1. This one was weird because Antonelli, they were actually closing in on Hamilton. Now, Hamilton is yet to make, at this moment, his final pit stop. Ferrari were doing their own thing in 4th and 5th. I don't quite understand what they were doing. So Antonelli and Norris were catching Hamilton's hand over fist with their fresh tyres. Norris was closing the gap massively on Antonelli every lap. Even if he lost time with back marker, he'd gain that time back next lap because he could push more. They caught Hamilton down the main straight. Hamilton went a little bit defensive, and Antonelli, it looked like Antonelli was going to go down the inside of Hamilton, but he hesitated. It was very weird, even though he went to the right-hand side of the Ferrari. And when he went to the right-hand side of Ferrari and then hesitated, he opened the door for Norris to have the Racing Lion under braking, more grip under braking, in turn 1, and able to go around the outside of Antonelli at turn 1. Into the lead he went on the exit, and then quickly got Hamilton the next lap, and that was Lando Norris in the lead. Nobody saw him after that. I can't remember the gap over the line, but it was going to be around 11 to 12 seconds. Now, I've seen some people call this race a 9 out of 10 race. It wasn't. I think it was entertaining for Zandvoort standards and for the standards of Formula 1 this year, which has dropped massively. But I think, again, for someone who's, if you can see what was happening in the race and you can see how the strategy of planning out and the pace Norris had, it was obvious, but as I said, by about lap 20 to 25, that Norris had the pace advantage and it was his race to lose, as we said previously. You have to be careful with watching F1 races now to be fooled what's a good race and what's not. Oh, I headbutted the microphone. Purely because, yes, it was better. For Zandvoort standards, well, it was a better race to watch. To me, it still feels more manufactured. It still feels like the drivers are having minimal say. Now, yes, the drivers are having say when it comes to figuring out the regulations. Look at Piastri, for example, which we'll talk about a bit later on, actually, because he was nowhere near the pace of his teammates. You can see Norris has the upper hand on his teammate in terms of figuring out the regulations, but even so, you figure them out, the drivers are still abandoned, effectively. They're still restricted by what the engines are going to allow them to do, despite the slight tweaks they've made throughout the season. As soon as I figured out Norris has got that pace, I knew no one was going to touch him. Surprised Mercedes kept the second and third. Antonelli did cross the line in second, Russell in third. We'll get into why I'm surprised, because really that should have been a Ferrari double podium. Speaking of Antonelli, it was his hesitation. I was going to say his hesitation, it's cost him the lead. It didn't matter. If he didn't do the hesitation there, Norris would have got him, I think, the next lap round because the pace advantage was that much. But Antonelli still has a comfortable lead in the driver standings with, I think, Russell and Hamilton now tied in second, which is a good feat for Hamilton to be tied second with the Mercedes. But Antonelli had a quiet second. He couldn't really do much more. He held the lead for as much as he could. As soon as he came out on his last stint, on the hard tyres, I believe, which Piastri had hard tyres on previously and had no pace at all. As soon as they came out on his last stint, he said instantly he has no rear grip, no tyre grip at the rear, and you could see, not really sliding as much, but you could see his pace just wasn't there. And he said something on the radio about he feels like he's got aero degradation, which wasn't a term I'd heard before this season, and now suddenly all the drivers are getting on the radio. Mercedes said no, it wasn't, so I don't think there was, but he didn't feel like comfortable in the rear of the car, especially on the last stint. I don't think that cost him the lead. I think he was destined to be done by Norris anyway, but still, second place is what he needs to do to get the points and keep his hold in the championship, which is now, I've said it before, but now you can't disagree, it's firmly his championship to lose. Now, why you asked, did I say I think Mercedes were fortunate to keep the double podium, and it should have been a Ferrari double podium. Towards the last few laps, there was a VSC came out. I don't remember who bought the VSC out. It might have been a Haas at the exit of turn 3. Maybe it was Ocon. Someone bought the VSC out. And it came out in a perfect timing for Mercedes because Russell was about to get done by Hamilton. It was actually quite clever to watch. Hamilton was, a few corners before the main straight, he was starting to line his car up. He wasn't bothering with that little back straight into the tight little chicane towards the end of the second sector and start the third sector. Hamilton didn't bother doing the boost down there because it was pointless. So what he started to do, even coming onto that little back straight and in the last 4 corners of the lap, he was placing his car in a way where he has the momentum to follow it long through the banking corner to have his energy to use it on the main straight. He came out of the banked corner. He was going to get Russell as well. I think he was within 4 tenths of a second coming onto that main straight. And then the VSC dropped. And it dropped at really the wrong time for Hamilton because it killed the momentum he had catching Russell, because he had to close the gap to Russell again because of Ferrari's different strategy. It killed that momentum, and then once the VSC ended after, I think, a lap or two, it was quite a long one because everyone was able to pit really into this VSC. But it really killed the momentum for Hamilton, and then the problem was, with just a handful of laps remaining, Hamilton then had to focus on what his teammates doing behind. Because, bear in mind, if Hamilton did pass Russell, Leclerc would have passed Russell with him because of the time he would have lost, and Leclerc then would have been on Russell as well. Russell, in turn, did a better job defending for the times he had to from Hamilton before the VSC and after. It wasn't like Russell drove away in the distance after the VSC ended. Hamilton just couldn't get away past him with the last laps remaining, which also proves why Zandvoort is not really the best track of Formula 1, so I'm not that devastated to see it go. Suddenly everyone cared that Zandvoort was, oh, it's so sad he's leaving. Okay, great. I never really thought it was great for Formula 1 and the size of these cars now. But, as I said, Russell did secure third. I put, is that a result or a gift? It's not really a gift, because he did win the sprint race. So I think he expected a better performance, because there was times where I think Antonelli and Norris put 8 seconds on him at one point. But it's a result he needed, really. He needed to bring in that third place, which he did. Ferrari should have had a double podium. I don't know what they were doing. They had the pace in the sprint race. So Leclerc was on the softs, went the distance, passed Norris into Tarzan in the sprint race for second. But in the race, Ferrari were making an absolute mess of things in terms of strategy. They had Leclerc on a different strategy to Hamilton, and it ended up to the point where Hamilton actually ended up catching Leclerc because of the tyre offset, and he was much quicker in the mid-stint towards the last pit stop. Hamilton was screaming on the radio, but, well, not screaming, but effectively moaning on the radio, saying they're losing time. They asked Leclerc to move over or to pit this lap. Leclerc said, no, I can't pit this lap because I'm fighting Russell, so that's going to hurt him in his fight against George Russell, the Mercedes, and then didn't move over Hamilton, which in turn cost Hamilton time. I think the seconds Hamilton lost in these 2 to 3 laps was enough for him to not be on the podium. And then in turn, the seconds Leclerc lost because of this weird strategy was enough for him not to be on the podium. Really, it should have been Ferrari second, Ferrari third. I don't know if Ferrari expected Hamilton to catch Leclerc as he did in the mid stint to get to a point where he needs to be on the radio. And then even when Leclerc pitted, Hamilton went on the radio and said, well, great job in losing so much time. Seems to be the Hamilton teammate relationship's already doing what he usually does in his teams. And it's interesting that Leclerc really is not going to have that, especially at Ferrari. You can see Leclerc did not even think about moving over. He was focused on his strategy, his race. It's not his fault Hamilton's come up behind him on a different strategy. He didn't want to lose time to Russell, which in the end he ended up doing anyway. And I think that this indecision again by Ferrari, we've known it for the last 20 years, happened again yesterday. I think it's expected, sadly. But it costed them, because they had the pace, they had the car to be quicker than Mercedes, and to actually beat the result, and they had the car for a double podium. And they think about it, Hamilton is now tied points with Russell in the championship standings, so really it's cost Hamilton current second in the standings, which is odd how Ferrari are now in this position where suddenly the car's very good, like good enough to beat Mercedes. McLaren, they love these low temperatures, is what it's obvious. I think the McLaren love these flowing low temperature tracks. Monza might be a little bit different, because I think the temperature will be a little bit higher. That'll probably be where Mercedes will again come to the front. And I expected after the sprint race, Mercedes to run away with it. When it's Norris, I said, hell of a drive from Norris. He's really figured out how to drive that McLaren. Tyres were a good state every stint. Nobody was touching Norris. I say again, Ferrari should have been second and third. It's baffling how they make these decisions still, where everyone watching the race could see they're holding each other up here. Not holding each other up. Leclerc held Hamilton up, yeah. But I'm not blaming Leclerc for that. I'm saying Ferrari, I don't think they calculate that the drivers are going to meet on track on the strategies they're on. And because of that miscalculation, they didn't react quick enough to get them out the way to keep the pace going. And that it ended up really hurting them, which again is silly by Ferrari. But behind them, so they were 4th and 5th. Again, should have been higher. Behind them was Oscar Piastri in P6. Now, Piastri, again, nowhere all weekend. He's had a few races this year, multiple races this year, where he just hasn't got to grips with the regs in the car like Norris has. Norris clearly suits these style now. He's figured it out. Same with Antonelli. Piastri is not comfortable in that McLaren, and I think he finished about 33 seconds off Norris in the end, which is something. They put Piastri on hards early, and it didn't work. It was slow. I don't know if this is a setup issue or it's a driving style issue, or just something deeper with how their brains are configuring these regulations. Either way, Piastri doesn't like it. So he ended up being in 6th and nowhere near his teammate. Now you might wonder, where was the home hero Max Verstappen? Well, he spanked the wall, the exit at the banked last corner on lap 1, and was out the race there and then. You know, he may have signed a nice 4-year deal with a multi-million-pound 4-year deal with God knows how much money, which was a bit of a surprise. So Verstappen's going to stay at Red Bull until 2030. But it didn't help his luck for 2026, as that continued to be absolutely tragic. On launch, so that was the crash, by the way, that's caused the red flag. So that was the crash that caused the red flag. On launch, the initial launch, Max had a good start, and Leclerc came bombing down the inside. I think it might have been Russell and Hamilton, and Leclerc came this gap, a hell of a launch by him, and Hamilton went left, he had to avoid Leclerc. Max was there, so then Max had to go left onto the grass, the wet grass, because it rained just before the race started, even though they all started on slick still. Followed them around, a bit of chaos in that one. They came around to the last 2 corners, and you can see these were the wettest part of the track by far, even though there was starting to be already a slight dry line. They came to the bank part, and you're actually watching Max. It wasn't on board, but the helicopter view was following him. And then it cut away as he went in the entry of the bank corner. Then, as we're looking down the main straight, Norris passes, Antonelli passes, other way around, sorry. The Ferrari passes, whoever. You just see this puff of smoke in the background. And my brain feel like quickly that's about where Max was. With the luck he's had, that's going to be Max. Then you see this Red Bull with absolute bits. Quite a hit. Absolute bits coming down the straight. The wheel overtook the car, which is funny to see. It was like comedic timing of the way the wheel was bouncing when the car stopped. But Max completely wrote off that Red Bull, the whole left side gone. He took a tighter line in this bank section, and I think that tighter line in turn, he said he saw the dry patch coming on, and he felt like now he could accelerate more when he went on that. But I think he did it a little bit too tight. I don't think he might have touched the inside curve of the white line ever so slightly. Mixing that with literally a millimetre, it could have been a millimetre of too much throttle on that slight damp patch was enough to snap the car. He held the first snap because of the speed of the snap and the lack of grip. The second snap and the overcorrection sent him into the wall on the left. Max Verstappen out the race on lap 1. His 2026 continues, as we said, to be absolutely awful. Thankfully, everyone managed to avoid him because the car did come back across track at the fastest part of the track. What happened behind him, however, was Bortoleto had a spin on his own. Bortoleto nearly lost it twice before the bank, kept it flat, and then lost it. smoke everywhere as he's trying to rotate the car back round. How Nico Hülkenberg avoided his teammate in this moment, I have no idea. It was incredible, the reaction. Hülkenberg's 39, incredible the reactions and the skill to avoid him, because Hülkenberg had to go through the smoke, then suddenly you see his teammate. I didn't like how Chandok, when they were reviewing it during the red flag, I didn't like how Chandok said that was luck. I'm very glad Nico Rosberg shut that down and said, no, those reactions is pure skill. To do that in an F1 car, to avoid like that, to have the reactions like that, especially at 39, pure skill by Hülkenberg. Wasn't luck at all. You need an experienced, a very good driver to avoid a crash there. Exactly what Hülkenberg did. Unfortunately for Verstappen, he couldn't avoid his one. I mean, it was one of those rare actual driver mistakes from Verstappen. If you look back since Saudi Arabia 2021, there's not really a lot of occasions where you see Verstappen crash through driver error. This was one of them. You can't blame anything else. This time it wasn't actually a car fault. It's a painful year for us Verstappen fans. I am one. You can see his thing in the background. I don't hide it. Painful year. Plus that would be a Tottenham fan. It's an awful year. It's not for the faint-hearted this season. But it was a driver error, and it's one. People call it a rookie mistake. I think a rookie mistake is a bit harsh. I think you're taking a risk on a banked corner when there's damn patches. Two of the best drivers in the world did lose it, so it's not really a rookie error, but it was a driver error nonetheless. In the other Red Bull, Liam Lawson replaced an injured Isaac Hadjar, who apparently broke his wrist boxing. I don't think Red Bull would have been best pleased with that, but Lawson did fill in for Hadjar this weekend, and actually did bring over points. It was a lonely 7th for him, but he did what he needed to do. I don't think anyone in the right mind expected Lawson to kind of do more in that Red Bull, because the car's also still dreadful, which again, why it's even more surprising that Max has signed a 4-year deal. I suspect you'll see the Verstappen Racing sticker on the sister team of the Red Bull very soon, and more GT races, more endurance races. I imagine that was part of the multi-million pound package he's just signed. But Lawson was 7th. I wrote, is it enough to keep his seat? I think he deserves his seat anyway. Maybe not in the Red Bull car, but I think he deserves to keep his seat in the AlphaTauri. It's not AlphaTauri, not the Toro Rosso, not Minardi, Viva Cashat, whatever they're called. I don't know. That team, you know the ones you're thinking of, alongside Lindblad. Speaking of Hülkenberg, actually, from avoiding Bortetto, he managed to not T-bone his teammate and bring the car in for P8, just in front of Alonso. Now, you might think, how am I mentioning Alonso in this in not a negative way, or Aston Martin in not a negative way? Fernando Alonso brought the car home in P9, which was a staggering result, a hell of a drive. And it's showing the upgraded Aston Martin, the new chassis upgrades, aerodynamic upgrades are proving to be Adrian Newey's worth, as he's able to drive the car. He's able to do things in this car. The Honda power unit upgrade is not there yet, though. That's still lacking, and that was evident when he was fighting the Williams. Every corner, entry, mid, apex, Alonso had to do these different lines because he was catching that fast in the corners. But then as soon as you get onto the straight, nothing he could do. He did hold on for P9, a hell of a result for Alonso, a hell of a drive from Alonso. He, I think, is the only driver in the last 50 years to be age 45 or above and score points, which is incredible. But there's nothing to do to take away from that drive from Fernando Alonso. To hold off also Pierre Gasly in the upgraded Alpine, which upgrade hadn't quite reached the hype of what I think they wanted it to have or intended it to have. Still a point for Gasly in 10th, nothing more than that. Couldn't catch up Alonso. Alonso was able to hold, I think the gap was 9 seconds with 20 laps left or something. He held it to about 2 or 3 at the end. P9 for Alonso, P10 for Gasly. Aston Martin are now making those steps, which is probably going to extend Alonso's duration in Formula 1, as he's, as I said, 45 years old now, which is just staggering. But he's still doing drives like this. So the Aston Martin is there, the potential's there. The grip, the grip compared to the Williams was evident in the onboard clip, where they were a league above it. It was just that power unit could not get going on the straight, and that's what will be frustrating them. And that rounds out the top 10 of the Zandvoort Grand Prix. And this is the reason why I say it wasn't 9 out of 10 race, because you take away... The results change because of strategy. And I've mentioned the memorable things that happened on track in these moments. Apart from that, nothing much. There was a funny moment with the Williams drivers, Sainz and Albon, who have both signed contract extensions earlier on last week. Sainz went down the inside of Albon in turn 1 Tarzan, locked up both of his front tyres, went straight into Albon, damaged both cars. And I think both cars in the end pulled into the pits. Which I think sums up Williams this year. All the hype they had for last year saying we're not developing because we're saving for 2026. Well, that backfired match, didn't it? Because you are Charlie Rapp for this season. But the thing, my problem is, you can't have a 9 out of 10 race when there's no overtaking using skill. Now you might say, oh, but Norris's move was good. Norris's move was very good. Yes, Anthony made it easier. Was very good. But half of that advantage he made was down the straight with the overtake boost. And it's what bugs me about Formula 1, not just this year. This year's elevated more because the drivers have less control. But the last few years in F1, it's very rare we're going to see a move on the brakes that takes skill. The strategy now are referred to as good races because strategies changed it. I'm all for strategy, we know, I've said in previous podcasts and this one. strategy can make a boring race a good one, which is true, and it did it for the Dutch Grand Prix. I missed the old days where overtaking was a thing, where it took skill on the brakes, you lunged it, you held your breath, and you proved your worth on the brakes in each corner. You didn't get that. You get cars battle into turn one, because again, they've had the whole straight to close in each other, and they come out, as Tarzan's a great corner, because it invites overtaking. It's the only corner in the track that invites it. And then you come out of Tarzan, exit turn one, you both go wide, you're side by side, but turn 2 and 3, these Formula 1 cars cannot go side by side in these corners. As soon as you touch the dirt in these cars, you're offline, you're going to go on the grass. And they just can't go next to each other because there's too much wind coming off. Not wind, too much that dirty air coming off even the side of these cars. It's going to put the other one wide, and you can't race at turn 2, you can't race around at turn 3. You can go side by side at turn 3, which we saw some do. Like Verstappen and Lawson got very close to each other on lap 1 of turn 3 on the exit. But then when you go back up the hill, the one who's around the outside really is going to get the better exit more often than not. I think on that occasion, Verstappen got the exit from the inside, because I think you put Lawson on the curb, which every driver's going to do. And then the next 40 seconds of the lap, you cannot overtake. You have to follow. And when you get to a track where you can't overtake anyway, throw in this era of these Formula 1 cars, which are difficult to overtake as it is, especially in these twisty track. It doesn't make for the greatest of show. So yes, a good race in terms of watching Norris close the gap. It's fun to watch drivers close the gap when they're on the tyre offset and you see how the strategies are planning out, and if you're able to see ahead of what could happen, you're waiting for it to prove if you're correct. That's happened to me watching Norris when I realised he's got the pace to win it comfortably. It was just watching if what I predicted in my head would come to fruition, and it did. I'm not on about ballsy overtakes, I'm on about the strategy played out, and the driver just had to do what they do in these cars, which is keep it on the tarmac, and the rest will happen, and the car will do the rest. And that's the problem. That's the issue with why I can't call it a good race. But for the standards of F1 this year, and what we have previously this season and these cars, it's as good as you're going to get, I think. I think this race sums up that show is the best you're going to get for Formula 1 in 2026. You're not going to get the ding-dong battles because... Okay, I take that back because people are going to say you are because you can with the engines and the power boost. Nah, it's not. I still have this hesitation to find it enjoyable because of the restrictions that are happening. But as a strategy nerd, you can't fault that strategy, and a clean drive did win it for Lando Norris, and he did what he had to do. The reason why I compared his overtake to Antonelli, the outside of Tarzan, which was a good overtake to Villeneuve versus Arnoux, that was Dijon. Villeneuve versus Jones at Zandvoort 79. Watch the two clips, and you'll see how much easier Norris had it to do the move compared to Gilles when we were bumping down that old Zandvoort straight, pulled to the outside. That Ferrari kicks him on the exit, and he gets it on the exit curb, exit turn 1. It's the way it is. It's not a moan by F1. It's just saying I don't think the race was a 9 out of 10, as some people are saying. I think it was more enjoyable. I don't think it was edge of the seat stuff. Maybe it's me being pessimistic because I'm able to, thankfully, I have the ability to kind of be able to see what's happening down the line, not just on the current lap, which maybe ruined some races for me, especially the Zandvoort one, because I could see what was happening. Entertaining scene. Oh, there was one clip actually with the Ferraris on the last lap after the VSC ended. I think it ended with what was it, 3 laps to go, 2 laps to go? Hamilton couldn't make the move in the inside of Russell turn, which he had to. I think he had the chance to go down the inside late, put his car alongside Russell and kind of squeeze him out. For some reason, he didn't do it. I think it was the one time he had to attack, and he could have. I think the other way around, if that was Leclerc in there, Leclerc would have done it down the inside and had to go. But as they came out of turn 3 back up the hill, Hamilton almost got caught sleeping by Leclerc, who had a bit more boost going up the hill and tried to get his teammate down the inside of the fast right-hander. Again, with the banked gravel trap top hill, I don't remember the corner name. And that was from the camera view we had, it looked a bit dodgy. It looked closer to an incident. When you watch the onboards, it really wasn't. And Leclerc already backed up before he was anywhere alongside, but Hamilton did have to dart to the inside before turning into the apex to cover the move from Leclerc. Leclerc was bumping. It wasn't dodgy at all, but they looked at it a bit. But when you watch it back, you realise actually nowhere near an incident. That almost got Hamilton out, but again, that also sums up Ferrari's day in a way, catching each other out with not even moves, attempted thinking ahead. But that, again, is why they ended up 4th and 5th, not 2nd and 3rd. Now, the next Grand Prix on the 6th of September is the Italian Grand Prix in Monza. Of course, the Tifosi will be on Ferrari's back about this one. Ferrari have had 2 wins this season, which is better than previous years. And it's one where I'd love to see a Ferrari win in Monza again. Love to see it. However, the state of the track was 11 corners at Monza, all about power. I think you're not going to get near the Mercedes or McLaren. I think it will suit McLaren more than Mercedes just because of the layout and the temps are meant to be higher than Zandvoort as well. Where will Max and Red Bull be? Nowhere. I think that's fair to say. Absolutely nowhere. Don't expect much from that. At the minute, Verstappen is struggling to finish races consistently this year, which is what they have to figure out first. And they now have 4 years to figure out of him, don't they? Which I just find it surprising, this 4-year deal. There has to be other clauses in that because he's not going to be competitive in Formula 1. think, for a while. I don't know if I'd expect Hadjar to be back for Monza. I think it's just one unfortunate timing for him to miss a race due to this injury, especially in training with boxing. I guarantee he won't be doing boxing again in his training, but hey-ho. The only real battle I can think of actually at the start from the leading group, really, that was wheel to wheel, was on the restart after the red flag. I think Russell was getting bullied in the first few laps by both Piastri, really, and the Ferraris all over it, and that was fun to watch. They need to put more focus on the midfield battles. There was one, I've just got to hear, lap 27, so you had the likes of Gasly, Hulkenberg, Lindblad, Sainz, Alonso, this queue of cars, and they were really bullying Pierre Gasly for a good number of laps. Gasly in the end would drop from like 9th or 10th to 14th in this battle, because Zandvoort's track, where you have to go offline when you get overtaken, and the likes of Lindblad, and they did a hell of a job to pass Gasly in this state, but then when Gasly would come back along, he's lost so much momentum and get charged down the next straight by the cars behind him. And this was a good 3 or 4 laps where this would happen. I'm glad we saw this one live, but I know for a fact there was more overtakes in the midfield we haven't seen yet, because they don't spend enough time focusing on them. I think the only time we see the midfield really is when they break down. Like Behrman, I mean, he broke down before the second restart, so he didn't even start. So another great look for Formula 1. The best one thing I will praise, I'll praise an overtake actually, and it was Charles Leclerc on Piastri coming out of Tarzan. So they went down the main straight, and this is what I mean. I'm showing I can also praise the sport when it needs to be. Right, I think Piastri went down the main straight, he went to the inside defensively. Leclerc looked like he was going around the outside, and really mid-corner, really put the angles on his Ferrari, went full lock and cut back on the exit. And I think it was the perfect example of both drivers used their skill on the brakes. They were both late on the brakes into Tarzan, trying to have the momentum round. But Leclerc's ability to have the awareness to think, park it, get the exact lock he needed, because when he was full lock at this point, and Piastri obviously is going to come just a bit wider in front of his nose, they must have been inches from touching, but Leclerc timed it perfectly. It wasn't ahead yet, but what this in turn did was give him the inside for the upcoming turn 2, where he should have more momentum because of the angle is at now on the exit turn 1 compared to Piastri. Piastri now going to have to scrub his rear tyres, run a little bit wide, whereas Leclerc now is back on the throttle already, almost straight lined the exit, which gave him the run for turn 2. Piastri couldn't respond to that. That to me is the example. That to me is a key example of how you can race with these cars. Perfect race, and that had nothing to do with, yes, he had the boost down the straight, but that was two drivers thinking, and Piastri, I think, knew very quickly, as soon as he saw Leclerc cut back, he's prey here, he's not going to be able to respond. Leclerc was aware, Leclerc was thinking, Leclerc was active with what he was doing, perfectly executed. It's what Hamilton, I think, should have tried on Russell with a few laps to go. Russell actually, I think, gave the door slightly open to Hamilton on the inside, and I'm surprised he didn't do it yet again. Actually, speaking of Pierre Gasly, there was a battle. He likes having a battle with Tsunoda, his old teammate. They had a ding down the main straight into Tarzan, and then they had a little scrap going back up the hill after turn 3, which I think it was impressive because Tsunoda actually stuck to the inside over the bumps and kept it going. And these are the ones that are memorable right now, which is good to see. There are some things still happening that the cameras are catching more. I just wish this was happening more up front, where the cameras are actually on. It's the ones people are actually watching. No disrespect to the midfield. The cameras and sponsors aren't getting enough airtime compared to the leaders. You know, I think that's the problem right now, is why maybe I'm hesitant and I'm careful to call it a good race, because I'm watching, the battle for the victory. It's one everyone's watching, and we're not quite getting... Well, I don't think we're not quite getting the fights that people are justifying they are. They're not. They're getting done on strategy. They're getting done down the straights. I want to see a race dependent on skill on the brakes. I want to see an overtake for the race lead and the race win happen on the brakes using skill, if Leclerc's overtake for Piastri was for the lead and for the win, you'd see it everywhere because it was that good of an overtake by Charles Leclerc. One final thing I'll say about the race was another funny moment, purely because I mentioned Ferrari's team orders earlier, where Leclerc kind of refused to box because it was on his own strategy. Mercedes had their own team order debate because Russell obviously stayed out long during the VSC and didn't pit, which meant Antonelli and they all pitted, came up behind Russell, and of course they caught him. Mercedes asked Russell to move out the way for Antonelli because Antonelli was getting hunted by the two Ferraris. Norris at this point was already up in the lead and gone. Russell comes back on the hard tyres compared to Antonelli's soft. Remember, Antonelli's got both Ferraris hunting him down. Russell knew if he now loses time to this, the Ferraris are going to have the momentum and then going to be on the back of him, which was inevitable was going to happen anyway. Russell just didn't want to lose, 1, points to his championship rival, and 2, the momentum because of what the Ferrari's doing. So he delayed it for a couple laps, asking if Antonelli's fighting for the lead, which he wasn't, because Russell knew Norris is 11 seconds ahead. And Russell said, let's be smart about this. In the end, he did let Antonelli go at Tarzan turn 1, which I'm surprised at. He's a championship rival. You're meant to be fighting for the championship with your teammate. Yes, teammate, but you're not teammates, are you, in Formula 1? Especially when you're fighting for the title. I can name many drivers who wouldn't let this team on happen, wouldn't let him pass. George Russell did. In the end, it worked because they were able to keep third with the extra VSC at the end coming out. I think he was fortunate. I was surprised that he allowed that to happen, but the VSC worked in his favour. Now, this is where the Apex to Apex brand changes, because we're going to go straight into the football over the weekend as the Premier League returned for match day 1, as we said at the start of the episode. And as a Tottenham fan, it's just as bad as it was before. Everyone who knows me knows I'm a very big Tottenham fan, lifelong Tottenham fan, as are. It's in the blood of my family, sadly. We didn't choose it, we got stuck with it. And this is where I decided, during the game, watching the game, I decided I need to rant about Tottenham. I have a platform to do that. Why am I restricting myself to just cars and bikes going around on the track? None of that anymore. This is going to be the place where us Tottenham fans can really let loose on the pain of being a Tottenham fan, especially the last 2 years. But I'm just getting the results out quickly to read through the actual results from matchday. Well, we know Arsenal started their first season as champions in about 20 odd years. We're 3-0 win over Coventry. I think it was quite an expected awakening for Coventry in the Premier League now. And spanked really 3-0 by Arsenal at the Emirates on Friday. Hull then beat Man United 2-0 on Saturday 12:30. Now, I imagine a lot of people who forget the rule to not put money on the 12:30 game lost money on that game for that result. Both centre-backs for Hull scoring that game, both from set piece. Poor defending for Man United. Now, I was laughing. You have to bear in mind, I'm a salty Tottenham fan who don't like any other clubs. I was having a great time watching Hull beat Man United, and then I was having an even better time watching Charlton beat West Ham in the Championship. Surely nothing can ruin these results from my day, and then Tottenham played. We'll get into that result in a second. Ipswich beat Sunderland 2-1 on their return to the Premier League. Everton beat Crystal Palace 2-0. I think Crystal Palace could be in a bit of trouble this year. The amount of losses they've had over the summer, lost in terms of key personnel. Glasner, for example, is now at Nottingham Forest. I say that. The next result is Nottingham Forest at home to Leeds, and Leeds won 1-0, which again is a surprise to me. And then the Brentford-Tottenham game. Brentford 3, Tottenham 0. It was an absolute shambles. Give me 2 minutes and I'm going to go directly into that game. Man City beat Bournemouth 2-1 in the last minute of the game. Bournemouth, again, are going to be a force this year, I think, in the top 8. They led most of that game from the early part, and I think only lost it in the last minute of the game. Gvardiol scored in what I think... He didn't celebrate because he thought it was offside, and then I saw the replay and I was like, he's actually onside. Brighton, this is the surprise of the weekend actually. Brighton 4, Aston Villa 0. Now Aston Villa have had a messy summer, especially within the fan base, a messy summer of transfers, losing personnel again, like Palace. Tielemans has gone, Morgan Rogers has gone. Brighton were 3-0 up inside I think 29 or 31 minutes, which is, again, Brighton are going to be an annoying force this year as well. 4-0 in the end for there. Newcastle drew 2-2 with Liverpool. Again, Liverpool equalised with a penalty right at the end of the game. Hall had such a good game. He really was phenomenal that game, and then made that one error in the last minute. Gave Liverpool the penalty. Liverpool, I don't think, deserved the 2-2 draw. I think Newcastle, unfortunately, with their first game with their new manager. So they both equal in points. And tonight we have Fulham-Chelsea, starting the season with a West London derby as well. As you can imagine, I'm a Tottenham fan. Cannot stand Chelsea. Hope Fulham put 6 past them. Now this is where it gets. This is the problem. I haven't even wrote notes for this. The Tottenham rant. It's so painful. It's ridiculously painful. And you have to remember, I had to watch this next to an Arsenal fan who was having a joyful time of them winning 3-0, us losing 3-0. We're making these signings, Tottenham, and it's good. I'm glad we're making the signings. About time we spent the money we all know we have. Tonali, 100 mil. Fernandes, who I thought was great when he came on. I don't know, wait, he's had this weird knock. I don't know how we're so unprepared in pre-season. Every other club had players in the World Cup, yet we seem to be the most unprepared with them returning. And fitness levels. I think De Zerbi said the physical condition is not there yet. We're not a team yet. The team one I understand because there's a lot of new faces. The physical condition, I mean, we seem to be the only club struggling with that yet again with fitness. Question marks again to the department where it controls that. We didn't have... Maddison gets injured every time he walks on the pitch. Kulusevski hasn't played for a year. God knows he's back. Kudos is back soon, but we still don't have Kudos since January. Xavi Simmons is out for God knows how long with his ACL. And we have no capable striker. Dom Solanke gets injured when you tickle him. And Richarlison can't kick a ball at a barn door. And this was up front. Here's the problem with the Tottenham team. This is more about the attack. I know we can go to defence. We had a we had a new defence really, just without Van der Ven and Porro. Because again, when their knocks came from, no idea why. They played the World Cup fine. But we've really missed Van der Ven and Porro. Archie Gray's not a right back. Senesi and Van Hecke was their first game starting with each other, so that was never going to be a comfortable pairing. And Robertson, a signing for experience, but he's in his early 30s now. He's not going to change the whole defence up, is he? Plus an error from Kinski for the second goal. We really gifted them 3 goals. They could have got 6, actually. But that just happened to be the 3 they scored were 3 we gifted. Broke us down easily. The The first one was a simple 1-2, cracked our defence open, ball along the box, tap in. The second one, a slip from Kinski. Not a slip, he parried the ball and really should have done better with it. That went in. Third one, I don't even remember the third goal. That's how painful it was. But then we get to our attack, our up front. I like Fernandez and Tonali in midfield. That's going to be the pair that's going to work more and more as they play more. Bergvall, I'm not sure why we played Bergvall. They handed in transfer request effectively in the summer. Great. We knew that already. Why are we playing him first game of the season when he doesn't want to be there? We can put that, he's going to stay. Great. He shouldn't have started. And he did this, I can't remember if it was the first, it was the second goal. He's done it a few times over his couple of years at Tottenham. Got the ball in the edge of the box. He's tried to turn and take on two players on the edge of our box. It's failed. He's lost it. They've played the ball down. Kinski's then parried it and then they've scored. It's one of those annoying goals. It's one of the goals you can see on Football Manager and you're just like, why are you doing that as a professional player? Not the smartest choice to start him, I don't think, but also, should we be starting a player who openly handed in a transfer request in the summer? No, I don't think so. They're on our attack right now. Now, the reason why I'm not too concerned with this result, it's a dreadful result. We're going to be finishing around mid-table. But if the deals are going to come in for Savinho and Marmoush, which I'm excited for if it happens, I have a horrible feeling this could be another Gibbs-White situation where we miss out for whatever reason, even though every report is saying it's done. Every Tottenham fan will understand this. It's only done when we see them holding the shirt. That's the only time we accept the transfer's done. Of course, there's sneaky finance involved in the Savinho Marmoush deal, but that's instantly two fast attackers who have the attacking mindset and the intent to go forward with the ball. What we had is Mikey Moore, who respectfully is going to be good when he's a bit older, not yet ready for Premier League. And I think he's been loaned out to Germany. So he started. We had Tell on the left. Tell, again, could be a great player. I don't think he'll be in England, though. We've had him for, 2 years now? And people still say the same thing. Oh, he's young, he'll learn, he'll get grips with it. He still plays now like he did when he joined 2 years ago. I don't see where the development has been on the left side there for him. And then you had Richarlison. There's not much to say about Richarlison. He can't hit a barn door. He spends more time moaning on the floor than he does with the ball at his feet. And that's a problem when you're the number 9, right? In a few weeks, we could have Kudus, Marmoush, Savinho. Savinho, I'm not sure on because I haven't actually seen much from him at Man City to make me that excited for him. Hopefully, I'm wrong and he just needed a new environment. Marmoush, I know, is a good player. Kudus, I know, is a good player. Savinho, I'm going to say, is a good player just for the sake of supporting him as he joins Tottenham. But instantly, that's a quicker and more attacking mindset 3 going forward than we had against Brentford. And this is where the issues come in as a Tottenham fan. It's painful. We've had the same, even with this new defence, we're conceding the same sloppy goals. Fernandez, again, had a knock. He will be the first name on the team sheet this season, all season, because he was fantastic when he came on. It was just unfortunate for him that when he got the ball and turned and faced forward, he was looking at donkeys, which it's up to De Zerbi to figure that out and to get the players in we need. I think we're all waiting for the official announcement, hopefully, for the Marmoush Savinho deal. What I want to, again, as you branch out to more sports like football, I will be bringing people on this podcast to talk about Formula 1, talk about football as well, and have this conversation with other people to gauge debate. Football and motorsport are the two of the easiest sports to debate with when you can engage in a conversation, especially football. And as a Tottenham fan, I'm used to getting all the crap come my way anyway. It just annoys me. It annoys me. You watched who was the player who ripped us apart? Was it Sangare? It was his debut in the Premier League, and it looked like he'd been there for 10 years. Compared to the players, we've had players for 2-3 years, and they still look like they don't have to tie their shoelaces. I mean, we know what it boils down to. It boils down to the scouting department. Lange is still there in the job, and he's done a crap job for the last 3-4 years, however long he's been there now. But it did make me laugh. People, it's fine to spend money unless you're Tottenham. That's what I've gathered as well. Every club can spend all the money in the world they want. As soon as Tottenham do it, it's a problem. Do I have a fear that I'm glad we're spending this money. It's fun to see Tottenham do the big bids. Am I scared that we're again going to do the big bids for players who are nowhere near their value? Like, for example, Conor Gallagher might be an occasion for that, as he started the game of Brentford and was absolutely dreadful. Yes, I do have that fear. Hopefully I'm wrong. We play Charlton on Wednesday. Someone next Newcastle next weekend. Jeez, they played well against Liverpool. Anyway, that's going to be the end of this podcast. New edition. We're going to again work on this podcast more and more as the weeks go on, expanding different things, giving different sections of different sports. Next weekend is MotoGP in Aragon, a place where Marc Marquez is heavy favourite for. I'll do a quick track preview of that before we end this podcast episode. And then if you want to get involved, let me know about any clubs you want me to speak about, anything in racing terms, in Formula 1, anything in the sport you want to speak about. We are happy to do so, even wrestling. Why not? Give it a go. What I will say about MotoGP the coming weekend is Marc Marquez, it's his best opportunity to respond with 37 points, which he needs, compared to as pretty as a running way in the championship now with Martin leading. What better track for Marc Marquez to go to where it's a more left-sided track? Aragon, I think he's won it 7 times down Aragon on the Sundays. It's the perfect conditions, ideal situation for Marquez and MotoGP to return. How quick are the Aprilias going to be at Aragon? Fast. The Aprilia is going to be fast everywhere. I don't see all the Ducatis being up there. I see it being Marc Marquez and I see it being Alex Marquez. They'll be the 2 leading Ducatis because they train next to this track. They grew up on this track. This is their land. It's the Aragon Marquez land. Everyone knows that. They've got a corner named after it, Marc Marquez. I think turned 13 or 14. I can't remember what one. Next to the big brick wall. Anyway, before we end this podcast episode, let's put ourselves in the rider mind now. So we've gone from cars to football to bikes. Welcome to the new Apex to Apex brand. This is how I enjoy doing it. It's my fault. I love too many sports and I understand too many sports. That's the problem. But anyway, put yourself in Aragon, Spain, down the main straight. Turn 1 is hard on the brakes. Every rider will be on as far right-hand side of the track as they can, maybe even on that curb, but not on the curb, that will actually move the bike on the braking, just next to the outside curb. Second gear, 90-degree left. You really have to put your knee over that left-hand side curb because it's a tight one and exit as well, because the exit goes straight into a kind of opening turn 2 on the exit, so you want to be as left you can on the exit, then pick the bike up, second gear, into turn 2, second to third gear, short shift. Turn 2 opens on the exit, you flow with it. Because you're carrying the momentum from the lean over of turn 1, you're flowing into turn 2, letting it run in third gear, maybe shift up to fourth for actually turn 3, because you're carrying the momentum on the exit of turn 2 into turn 3, which is effectively the same corner as turn 2, opens even more on the exit. 3's a right-hander. Come out of turn 2, left-hand side of the circuit, lean it into turn 3, again, get as close to the inside curb as you can, because you're going to stay on the exit for about a second on the outside, but instantly you look at turn 4, and you realise you need the bike to be on the right-hand side of the circuit, but you can't sacrifice the exit speed to do that early, so you let the bike run through turn 3, pick it up, go to the right-hand side of the circuit for a little kink of turn 4, little bit on the brake. If you go too much down the gears for turn 4, the engine brake is going to unsettle the bike massively. It's a very weird kink turn 4, but it kind of lines up turn 5. You use turn 4 to go to the outside of the track on the exit, brake down to second gear again for a long turn 5 hairpin, not hairpin, but it nearly is a hairpin because it's really tight on the exit. Left-hander, pick the bike up, again your knees over the curb, tight as you can to the inside apex, pick the bike up, you're on the right side of the circuit coming out now, and then we're going to do a little small climb uphill, turn 6 into turn 4, it's a corner that the riders aren't going to recognise as a corner because they're short shifting out of turn 5, now they're leaning right, short shift, everyone knows the Malaysia track for example, you come out of turn 6 but you're going to lean on the throttle and you're kind of drifting the bike wider and wider and wider like that. If you have the video you can see my hand, drifting it wider, because turn 7 is a tight right-hander, similar to turn 1, but the other side. You need to brake hard on the outside of the circuit to open up this corner as much as you can because of how tight it is. The problem is, because you're doing that on the lean already, very easy to drop the front. Turn 7, tight apex, boom, get the elbow down on the curb, straight line now between 7 and 8, very short straight line, and the hill we just climbed, we're going to dramatically drop down, similar to the corkscrew in Laguna Seca. Left side of the circuit now, brake down to second gear, maybe even first for turn 9 actually, from turn 8. But you brake down to second gear for turn 8, you're braking downhill now. Lean right, as soon as you lean right, before you even think, you have to pick the bike up, down to first gear, lean it left for turn 9, which is a hairpin. The difference with turn 9 is, if you get that right again, I want your elbows and knees all over the curbs as much as you can. Turn 9 hairpin, you have to go straight on the throttle, short shift from second, and then I think short shift also from second to third. As 9 curves out like this, you're on the right side of the circuit, into turn 10, which is continuously curving. This is a fantastic corner, turn 10, because as you've short shifted up to third gear, you can really get the rear wheel spinning, get the rear wheel smoking, as turn 10 continues to lean around the whole time and tightens right at the end. So as soon as you think you've done on the outside line, you now have to get the bike, dramatically tighten it for the exit to line up what's turn 11. It counts as a corner, but I'm not counting it. Get turn 10 right, you've got that tight exit done. You're basically going down a leaned straight, similar to Austria levels, in terms of it's a straight, you can go flat, but you're not actually going straight, you're leaning left the whole time, the rear wheel is spinning. Now you're hard on the brakes for turn 12, when you're going quite some speed into turn 12. This is the little double chicane section, but quite wide. Turn 12, again, tight entry, tight exit, because there's that big exit curve on the right-hand side of the exit at turn 12. You can make a move into it, if you've lined the rider up going out of turn 10, you can get kind of like an undercut line in the exit of turn 10, make the move down to the inside of turn 12, brake in, lean in, second gear, over that inside curb again with your knee. You're going to end up to the right-hand side of the track on the exit. You need to again flip it left of the circuit before you flip the turn 13, which is a right-hand flop. You can't go, I say flip it left, here's the interesting part of turn 12. It's not an occasion where you come out and then like the other corners, you get it all the way to the left side of the circuit. You need to go to about the middle of the circuit before you start leaning the bike right for turn 13. Otherwise, you're going to get done on the inside and actually lose a lot of time, because the way turn 13 opens on entry and exit, you don't need to open it up as much as you can for other tight chicanes. Get the bike to the middle of the circuit, lean it right for turn 13, get the exit because you're following that momentum all the way through from the entry to exit, keep it on a high curb, brake for turn 14, we're going downhill again, tighter now than what 12 and 13 were, second gear, hit the curb in the inside of turn 14, put the bike all the way to the right hand side. You're going to see some racing here. This is where someone make a lunge and you get an undercut back onto the straight out of turn 15. But now coming out of 14, you're on the right hand side of the track going to 15, hit the brakes. You need turn 15 to be as open as possible for you because of the size of the straight between 15 and the last corner of 16 is massive. I don't know the exact length. It's over a mile. I believe it's over a mile back straight anyway. Not actually too sure on that one. I might have just made that up. But it's a very long back straight. You need 15 to be open on the exit to have the momentum. You don't get the momentum of that straight, you'll be slaughtered down this back straight. And 16 is a fast corner. You're going to head into turn 16, 210, 250 miles an hour probably. Hit the brakes, probably third gear. The legs are going to go out now. 16 is a long, similar to the old Austria last corner back in the 70s. It's a long left-hander like this. No, not tight at all until the exit. You're going to have, it's one of those where there'll be two lines. You can take a tight line through the entire 16, stay left, stay left, stay left, but then you good entry, but you're going to ruin your exit onto the main straight because the finish line comes up quite fast on the exit. Or you can do what I think is the Marquez line now, is you hit the first apex of turn 16, the entry, you let the bike drift wide. Some bikes like the Aprilia, this is where the Aprilia will be fast because they can turn underneath other bikes at these sort of corners with momentum, with speed on the lean. You want to let the bike drift wider and then let the bike, as you squeeze on the throttle back, come on the exit of 16, bump up the hill onto the main straight. There's the finish line. I think obviously it favours Marquez because it's a left-hander, it's a long left-hander. He can balance the throttle there as well, that only he can. But then it's also a corner where the Aprilias itself are going to suit that corner better than any other bike. That's the one to look out for the overtakes. I expect to see a few into that on the exit, that last corner, because there's always a side-by-side battle coming out of that last corner. I like how I've left this to the end of the episode because now it gives me some hype for MotoGP for the next sport to think about away from glory, horrible Tottenham. Anyway, that is going to be the episode done of this podcast. As he said, not a new brand, kind of a rebrand, more sports involved. We're going to try to mention as much Formula 1, MotoGP, GT, any race, any sport that we're interested in, football, any sport that we're interested in, that I'm interested in to talk about, that we can get involved in. Welcome, this is the place to talk about it. But I'm going to leave it as that. I am going to still leave it as the punchline of the race. It's just the punctuation. There will be streams this weekend for MotoGP Aragon, of course. That will be on Sunday. I don't believe I can stream the Saturday sprint race. I might be working. In fact, I am working. So it will be a Sunday main race Twitch stream. Again, make sure you follow all the handles below. The names have slightly changed, so I need to update that. Instead of Apex to Apex Podcast, they're all going to be Apex to Apex Sports. And Twitch especially, we're very active on Twitch and Instagram. They're the most. Make sure you follow them and subscribe on Twitch. Apex to Apex Sports for sim racing, for gaming, for live watch-alongs. Little bit of commentary as well on the sports you're watching. Watch along now for football, any sport we get involved in. And I will leave you with that. Thank you for listening. We'll see you again this week.